Right now, 2024 is looking like a 2020 rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Now, you might remember Biden's 2020 remarks on The Breakfast Club, where he told Black America to check his track record.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community. I would love to see.
Take a look at my record, man. I extended the voting rights 25 years. I have a record that is second to none. The NAACP has endorsed me every time I've run. Come on. Take a look at the record.
Well, that didn't age well. You heard Biden tout his past record on the Voting Rights Act and NAACP report, but that's not nearly enough to earn a vote. Recent polls suggest Biden will need to work harder to keep black voters on his side. During the 2016 election, Donald Trump pulled out about 8% of black voters. A November poll by the New York Times and Siena College found that Trump would get 22% of the black vote if the election were held this year. Similar polls by CNN and Fox News put black support for Trump at around 23% and 26%, respectively. Now, to be clear, around 92% of black voters supported Joe Biden in 2020. But that support is waning, and not because Trump is a better candidate, but rather because of disdain for his policies and a growing fatigue of Biden's failed promises to black America.
And especially for those moments when this campaign was at its lowest ebb, the African-American community stood up again for me. You've always had my back, and I'll have yours.
I think it's safe to say Joe Biden can't depend on the black vote fully in 2024. The latest NBC News poll found that less than 70% of black voters support President Biden's reelection. But Trump is dangerous, and he's not the answer either. So who gets the black vote in 2024? Joining me to answer that question is the legendary Tezlyn Figaro. She is a political strategist. She's also the host of the Straight Shot No Chaser podcast, one of my faves. She even let me on one time. And we also have the equally legendary Melik Abdul, a radio host, a GOP strategist, and he had them shoulders moving before we got the segment popping. All right, Tezlyn, I'm going to start with you. Is Biden's 2024 re-election push salvageable? What could he do between now and maybe next November, let's say, to win back that 30% of black voters who are looking real sketchy right now?
Man, where's the list? I mean, I don't know. Hopefully there's always hope, I guess. But really, people are looking for action and looking for policy. And I just want to be honest, like a lot of that market, that time has already passed because voters are becoming, a little bit more smarter when it comes to pandering and last minute gimmicks. But really, my concern is not just the black vote, which, that's what I'm hyper focused on, the black vote. But the reason why President Biden, in my opinion, is in trouble is because of the entire coalition that's falling apart. When you talk about losing Muslim voters, particularly in Michigan, that is just something that just cannot happen if you want to be able to win. When you talk about young voters who he never really had in the first place, when you talk about progressives who, again, never really had in the first place, really just held their nose to vote for Biden in 2020. So then when you mix in black voters as well, Hispanic voters as well, he is literally losing across the board. And so who is supposed to pick up that slack? I will say the black voters still overwhelmingly out of all of those groups still vote more for the Democrat Party than any other group. But I'm just not sure, Marc, if it's going to be enough to make up the difference on the other demographics that are falling off.
Melik, this is what I don't get. Talk to me about your man Tim Scott for a second. It's not even about him. It's just the fact that he's not in the race anymore. If a black man were in the race for a Republican Party, I'd say, okay, I see why some black folk, especially black men, might be voting for a Republican. But they ain't voting for a black guy. They voting for Donald Trump. Not Nikki Haley, not Ron DeSantis, not Ramaswamy, not Christie. No, they voting for Donald Trump again. Why is this happening?
I think if you go back to 2016, and as I always say, that was the first time I voted for a Republican, which was Donald Trump. And a lot of that had to do with the frustration in being a Democrat, feeling as if that I didn't have a place in the Democratic Party. I was pro-life. I didn't seem to have a place in the party. I think a lot of what you're seeing now is a similar frustration that people have with Joe Biden. If you ask them what issues that they disagree with Joe Biden on, there isn't a lot of substantive things they don't feel it, and how people feel guides actually how they vote. And until that is reconciled, I think it's going to be continues to be some problem with Joe Biden. But people don't see Donald Trump as the savior. This perception that everybody who supports Donald Trump are MAGA extremists. People are refusing to understand why people, even like me, would support someone like Donald Trump. And until they reconcile that in their head, Donald Trump has a very strong possibility of being the next president of the United States. A strategy has to happen, and they don't have one, other than we hate Donald Trump.
I think a big part of it is that historically, Black America has supported the party that's most progressive on civil rights. But now there seem to be other issues pulling us apart. Melik, you just mentioned one, reproductive stuff, being pro-life or not. But there are other reproductive issues on the table after the Supreme Court has basically overturned Roe v. Wade. So now it seems like the party can't just have a general disposition towards civil rights or a general lean towards civil rights. It sounds like they got to actually do stuff to earn the vote. If they're doing that, if Republicans are doing that, they're earning our vote. I don't see where exactly, Tezlyn. Is this just a protest vote at some point, or are Republicans actually laying out issues that they're being more responsive to than Biden administration?
Well, if Melik wants to, vote for Donald Trump, who just said earlier this week on Fox News on Sean Hannity that he will be a dictator for the first 24 hours. If Melik is, comfortable with voting for a dictator for the first 24 hours, then, so be it. But what I see, the Black voters who are falling off, they're not voting for Donald Trump. They're not voting for the Republican Party, may possibly consider Nikki Haley at best, but I doubt she'll get the nomination. But what they're doing is a protest vote and saying, I'm just going to sit home, like we see a lot of the Muslim Americans saying, I won't be voting for Trump, but I definitely won't be voting for Biden. So I think people are just over wanting to be the savior, of the Democrat Party. And because Trump was in office before, so let me just make this clear, even though he's clearly saying I'm going to be a dictator for the first 24 hours, people really don't, they've seen him in office before. So it's not really connecting on what a second presidency under Donald Trump would like, even though he is flat out saying that he is going to weaponize, literally said he's going to weaponize the DOJ against the media. So even though he is clearly telling you, hiding in plain sight what he's going to do, people say, well, under Trump, it wasn't that bad. So when they compare those two, plus the 90 plus criminal charges, we don't even know if he's going to be on the ballot, first of all. We don't know if he's going to be on the ballot.
Let me let Melik get in that for a minute, because I got to get some response from Melik before we take this break. Melik, assuming Donald Trump ain't sitting on top tier of Sing Sing and he is president, I mean, how do you respond to that? Are you willing to prioritize whatever issues you care about over him saying he'll be a dictator, over him saying he's going to weaponize DOJ against the media? I mean, how do you reconcile that stuff?
Well, I reconcile it by listening to what he said. And even when he was pressed on that actual statement, what Donald Trump said is that on day one, what he would do, he would build the border wall, and that he would, I think he said the other thing, I can't even remember what the other, he would drill. Well,
and be a dictator.
He said that he would, he said that he would, on day one, be a dictator, and he would focus on border security and drill. If people want to say that that's a dictator, sure.
I mean, he said it.
He said it.
He said it's a dictator. He said it.
I'm telling you, but I'm telling you exactly what he said he would do as a dictator. Build a wall and drill. So if you asking me how I'm actually reconciling that, I'm actually listening to what Donald Trump said. So,
I get what you're saying. Melik is saying, yes, he'll be a dictator, but I'm okay with the things he's going to be dictating.
I mean,
so
if you know what I'm saying is, well, first, Melik is going to have to be allowed to speak for himself. What I said was in reference to what Donald Trump said. If you have a problem with a dictator being someone who would build a wall or drill, fine. The question to me was, how do I reconcile that? And I think it's probably a good idea to listen to what I'm saying, other than just saying, oh, well, Melik is fine with somebody being a dictator. I understand the context in which those remarks were made.
Well, what about what he said to MSNBC? What about what he said with weaponizing the DOJ?
All right, we got to take a break. We got to take a break. We got to take a break. And I want to make sure that we have plenty of time to address these pressing questions. Everybody, we're going to take a quick break, pay some bills, as they say in the radio business, and we're going to talk about the concerted effort by GOP-led states to suppress the black vote and how that will impact our leverage in 2024. And I'm also going to ask Melik a little bit more about this DOJ thing because I think it's super interesting and I want to hear his full response. Everybody stay right here. We got more with Grio coming up.